by design is suggesting proactivity, scheduling these means of communication and holding to the schedule. And what happens is that people and companies tend to underperform to their capabilities because we rush to the urgent at the expense of the important. And communication, there's nothing urgent about it. So what happens is it gets kicked down the ladder. This podcast was on my calendar to do. It was on your calendar to do. But if we didn't put it on the calendar, I can tell you, you and I both have a lot of other urgent things to get to. But we're not going to cancel it. So it took place, and the urgent will get taken care of later.
Welcome to the Great Talent, Great Business Podcast, your go-to resource for building exceptional teams and thriving businesses. Each episode delivers actionable insights on harnessing offshore talent, integrating innovative technology, cultivating a vibrant company culture, and attracting and retaining top performers. Subscribe now to never miss an episode. For more resources, visit greattalentpodcast.com, where you can download this episode's free worksheet designed to help you apply today's insight to your business. And now, here's your host, Rob Levin.
Today, I'm joined by Jack Daly, a seasoned sales trainer, entrepreneur, executive, and author with over 30 years of experience in sales management, corporate culture, and business growth. He's built and led 6 companies to national success, selling 2 to Wall Street companies, and has authored multiple best-selling books, including Hyper Sales Growth and the Sales Playbook for Hyper Sales Growth, and also this one. I have these books nearby because I keep stacks of them here to give them to people I like that come by the office. Jack is a dynamic speaker, accomplished athlete. He has completed close to 100 marathons, I believe, and at least 5 Ironmans across several continents. Jack, it's awesome to have you here on the podcast. Let's dive in.
Rob, good to see you, and you're a great friend, and thanks for holding up the books and giving them to the people. You're making a difference in people's lives. You know, whenever somebody gives somebody an introductory notes, they can't keep up to date with the numbers. Just for clarity, it's 100 marathons, right on the 100. Athens was my 100th marathon, the original. And the Ironmans, actually 15 full Ironmans and about 30 half.
Wow.
Yeah, the big numbers, especially, you know this, my first Ironman was not until I was 58 years old because I had to learn to swim.
Yeah. For anybody out there who's like, oh, I don't know if I'm too old for this or whatever. No, you're not, because there's your proof. All right, let's jump right in. Jack, I want to start with culture by design, which is a term I heard from you many years ago. When you're building a company culture, when you're building a company, what should leaders focus on to make it intentional rather than just letting it happen?
Yeah, I'm big on role models, Rob. I call it modeling the masters. There's always innovative things going on in the world, but so much of success can be predicated based on prior successes of other people. And so I'm a voracious reader. I'll read probably 100 books this year, and I'm always looking for what are those lessons. And a great guy to learn from is Richard Branson. He's about the same age that I am, in my mid 70s. And the difference between Richard and I, and we've been on stage together, is this guy's built over 200 companies under the Virgin brand, right? Very, very successfully. And it comes down to really 3 things when I think about Branson. Vision, really understanding what it is you're trying to build. You can't get there unless you know what there is.
Yeah.
Then bringing in key people in key spots. And then the third thing is what you just mentioned, which is an intentionally designed culture, creating an environment in your company where people want to actually go to work there. It's not like, I got to go to work. It's actually, hot damn, I get to go to work there. Because if you could create that kind of an environment, and you can, you have a competitive, sustainable advantage. So my challenge that I give to entrepreneurs and business owners all the time, Rob, is this. What are you doing to instill that type of an environment in your company? And I really come down to 4 legs of a strong culture. Recognition systems, people are starving for it. Communication systems, People really want to know what's going on. Give me the real skinny and how we doing and where are we headed. Regular, ongoing, proactive communication. Third, personal and professional development processes. Why should I come to work at your company and why should I stay once I'm there? What's in it for me? How are you developing me? And one of the things I want to underscore there, Rob, is I said personal and professional. And as you know, I'm a big bucket list type guy. What are the dreams of your people? What are their wishes? What do they want to be when they grow up, so to speak? And if we could go about facilitating it in some way, gosh, there's loyalty all over the place there. So that's personal and professional development. And then the fourth is empowerment processes, creating an environment in the business where people feel comfortable making decisions as if they own the place.
Jack, that's awesome. I'm nodding my head because these are many of the things I talk about. And of course, I'm like, oh, I wonder where I heard these things from. It was probably from seeing you probably 20 years ago. And eventually I was able to make it come to fruition now with Work Better Now. Here's my question to follow up on that, Jack. Most of the people who are listening to the podcast and watching along, they already have a business. And okay, maybe this is a bit of a wake-up call because they've heard it also from previous guests on the podcast, the importance of culture. So you're already in business. Maybe you're in business for 15 years. Where do you start to turn around that culture and make it more intentional and by design?
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. I think some easy things are recognition. I can't help but remember having a sales team of 2,600 salespeople. That's a mega number for most of our listeners here. But 2,600 people operating out of 100 different locations actually got a personalized birthday card sent to their home from me. And they also got an anniversary card when they were, 3 years with a company, 8 years with a company, or whatever number it is, sent to their home so that they could share it with their significant other and their kids and so forth. And how many times have I heard employees say, where have you ever heard of working at a place where the owner or the leader is sending you a birthday card to your home? That's why I work so hard, et cetera, right? And that might sound foreboding to do 2,600 cards or 5,200 cards over the space of a year because I'm doing anniversaries and birthdays. But HR has the birthday of everybody and they've got the start date of everybody. So I just said on the 15th of every month, have the cards for next month all ready for me to sign and make notes in. And I'd hand them back to HR and say, spread them out into the mail on the appropriate days so they get it on their birthday. It's a simple, easy thing to start with. Simple, easy things that when you see the reaction of people, you go, all right, let's implement something else now. And you, the giver, are going to get as much back, if not more, than the recipient. If I send you, Rob, a birthday card, you're going to feel really good about it. But if I send 2,600 birthday cards out in a year, I'm going to hear from a lot of people along the way saying thanks for the card. And that's coming back at me in droves because I'm sending out more than 100 in a month.
That's something that everybody can do. It's simple. It's a little bit of work. It's fun because, as you mentioned, there's something about giving something to people, right? It's a very cathartic thing. It's just a no-brainer. And we'll also share in the show notes a little bit of information on the W Awards at Work Better Now, our recognition system, which is also very easy to do. A great place to start. Thank you for that, Jack.
Look, let's personalize it, Rob. My bet is that everybody that's listening in does something like that with their family.
You would hope so.
Right.
Yeah.
So here I am, Grandpop Jack with 5 grandkids, and those grandkids are on an opposite coast from me. So if I make it that important with my family, I want to think of culture as I'm building a business family.
Yeah.
And so if you would do things that way for your family, how about for your business family?
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. Jack, when it comes to, so many companies now have remote people or hybrid, and which brings a lot of opportunities and obviously some challenges. When it comes to building a culture by design, what are some special considerations that you should be making to accommodate and to engage your people who are not in the office?
Yeah, Rob, I would tell you if we were in baseball, you threw me a specialty pitch there. And what I'm talking about there is that it requires extra effort. You're going to need to be on the ball here. I'm not trying to sell a book, but in hyper sales growth, in one section of the book, there's 17 action items that we can do to be better communicators. And so leveraging audio and video and Zoom, Teams, et cetera, and having a scheduled communication vehicles will bring people into the fold and get them to be part of the family, so to speak. I'll take you back over 30 years ago. I would rent an hour time at KOCE TV in Orange County, California, and I'd go down to the studio and I would speak for an hour. Sometimes I'd have guests, the head of sales or the head of operations, and interview them, and always giving them an idea of how we're performing financially and where we're headed towards the vision, recognizing some people on the air and that type of thing. And I didn't have the budget to spend a lot of time doing editing and things. So it was raw. It was raw footage. It's whatever the mistakes were, the mistakes were. And the fact that I was able to communicate with my mistakes made me more human to the people
Sure.
that were out in the field who didn't see me very often. And then when I would make an occasional visit to some place and see somebody, they'd come up and say, I just love who you are as a human, because you do these videos and you make mistakes and you just shrug them off, and you're just interested in making us feel good about the company that we're a part of, right? A newsletter. Today, we can leverage technology and do it such that you don't have to send it to a printer. Back in those days, I had to do this newsletter and then send it to a printer and then send a hard copy out and all of those types of things. It's so much easier to do today. But here's what I would challenge people on in terms of the newsletter. The newsletters are very often done by HR, and they tend to be policy and procedure and dull types of things. What I want it to be is like a family photo album. I want it to be fun, exciting stuff, things that'll make you laugh, throw some information in there, give some recognition in there. And so I had a company that I grew from 4 people to 750 people. And in that first 3 years, we did that. In that period of time, our newsletter grew from 1 page to over 50 pages, and it was monthly. And I personally, as the CEO, took a day every month and wrote it from 1 to 50 pages. That was the level of importance communication had with our remote people,
Yeah.
because the remote people are the face of the company. And it's not about corporate, and it's not about a central location. It's who are client facing out there. And the more that I can have them be part of the family, the better I am as a company.
Yeah. So the takeaway for the audience, I'm going to use my own words here, is over communicate, right? Because it's more than you're probably used to doing when everybody's by the water cooler. And spoiler alert, you don't have to rent the studio. You can do this now, obviously, from your desktop. There's editing tools if you even have to do that. And I love the whole thing. You didn't use this word. I'll use the word. Just be authentic. Just be yourself. And that builds trust. And maybe we'll touch on trust. I know that's a big one with you in a little bit.
Proactive versus reactive.
Right.
Right? By design is suggesting proactivity, scheduling these means of communication and holding to the schedule. And what happens is that people and companies tend to underperform to their capabilities because we rush to the urgent at the expense of the important. And communication, there's nothing urgent about it. So what happens is it gets kicked down the
Yep.
ladder. And, intended to do this, but other things came up. This podcast was on my calendar to do. It was on your calendar to do. But if we didn't put it on the calendar, I can tell you, you and I both have a lot of other urgent things to get to, but we're not going to cancel it. So it took place. and the urgent will get taken care of later.
This episode is brought to you by Work Better Now, your trusted partner for getting high-performing talent from Latin America. Our clients tell us that partnering with Work Better Now has transformed their businesses by providing the proactive, reliable, and skilled professionals that they need to thrive. Ready to build your dream team? Visit workbetternow.com to schedule your consultation today. As a special thank you to listeners of the Great Talent, Great Business podcast, we're offering $150 off your first 3 months. Just mention Great Talent during your consult. Join the businesses building their dream teams and take the next step in transforming yours today. Jack, I want to talk about playbooks. You've written a lot about the importance of playbooks in the sales department. What makes playbooks so effective, and how should business owners be thinking about playbooks throughout their organizations, not just in sales?
How many hours do we have on the podcast here?
Not nearly enough.
So you've heard this for 2 decades. Sports teams are run better than most businesses. And that should bother you if you're a business owner. How are sports teams run better than most businesses? I've got 3 things. One, they've got a playbook. That doesn't matter, high school, college, professional, they got a playbook. Second, they practice the playbook. And third, the coach is on the field interacting with the players to make sure that they're running the plays correctly. So as a business owner, that's the way we should think. Do we have a playbook? Are our people practicing? And are we on the field holding them accountable and giving them correction and course corrections? I'm going to take you back to my 2,600 salespeople, because if I magnify this, it brings home the point really well. Can you imagine 2,600 salespeople in the field selling 2,600 different ways? I brought them all together and said, that would be insane. There's probably a best way to sell this product or service. So the playbook is, what are the best ways? If we look at objections, salespeople's knees knock on objections. I happen to be thrilled with objections because they're signs that somebody's interested in maybe doing business with me.
Right.
And so I want to get them over their objections. But I don't need to wing it, because I can anticipate what they're going to be, just like a sports team can anticipate what they're going to do when I go back to throw a pass or make a run, right? So what are the common objections? There's probably less than a dozen. So why not figure out what the best responses would be and then drill it into us such that we're comfortable. And by the way, the more comfortable we're getting with understanding that the objections are going to come and we have the answers, the less our knees are knocking, which means that we're conveying confidence in our company, product, and service, which is giving comfort to the prospect.
Yeah, I think you implied this. On the sales side, when you're dealing with objections, you got to really just think about that's just part of the buying process. It's really nothing more than that. And then, Jack, just a word on playbooks throughout the organization, because once you say it, it's very obvious everybody should have this in sales. What about in other parts of the organization? What are your thoughts about that?
So this could surprise a lot of people, even the people that know, but I'm a trained accountant. And I have a bachelor's degree in accounting. I worked at a Big 8 accounting firm back when there was something called the Big 8. It's now the Big 4, I think. But, CPA and all the rest of that type of thing. And wore the hat of chief financial officer in a couple companies in my early years. The same existed with the financial side of the house, the accounting side of the house. There's a certain way that we can be efficient and effective at closing the books. I'll challenge the listener today to say, how quickly is your financial area closing the books? How quickly are you turning around and getting financial statements that tell you how you did and what the key performance indicators are, so that we can change behavior quick enough to make a difference the following month? I don't know if the financial information on how we did last month is coming to me on the 25th of the following month. I just lost another month of behavioral change that could take place. So could I be more effective and efficient if I were following a process and following best practices? And so that's on the financial side of the house. And same thing applies on the operations side of the house. Same thing applies in the plant. Just imagine Amazon, where I put an order in yesterday At about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I ordered something that had to do with my energy shakes that I take. And I ran out of protein powder and I put my order in. It'll be delivered today between 4 and 8 p.m. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Rob, I'm not sure I could get in the car and go to the store and get it and come back in that time.
Right.
So, how are they doing that worldwide in business? They're following a playbook. Their best practices are being followed at all of their distribution centers. It is the way to be done. And one last thing here, as you and I both do a lot of travel, I probably do a bit more than you, but wherever I am, one of the preponderances that I see is more and more franchises. The mom and pops are disappearing, but they're being replaced by franchise businesses. And so, for example, I'm a Philly guy, born and raised, and so I like a good hoagie, a good sub. Um, Jersey Mike's works for me. And no matter where I go, Jersey Mike's is delivering me the sandwich that I want. The one that I get at my local Jersey Mike's is the same one everywhere. And the store has got 3 to 5 people, typically in their 20s, delivering that product exactly the way I want it, no matter where I am. That's because franchises are driven by a playbook. They figured out how to do this in the most effective fashion, not just sales, everything that goes on in the organization.
Yeah. I'm going to paraphrase one more time here. If you want to grow, there's no way to do it because you got to have that consistency. You got to make it easier on your team. And by the way, it's very powerful for your employees. They have this playbook to follow, and that allows them to actually be more creative because they don't have to think, what do I do next? What do I do next? That's all spelled out. Then they can actually use their brains, add more value to it, whatever it is they're doing.
And be more personable.
Right, which goes a long way. Switching gears one more time, Jack, you coach a select few business owners who are fortunate to be working with you. If you were to say, looking at the group that you're currently coaching, that you have coached, what are the top 3 things that they end up doing after or while working with you that make the biggest impact?
So I'm running the numbers on 3. The first thing that I would tell you is I'm shocked by how many small to medium-sized businesses do not have a rigorous or even existing financial plan. I'm not talking about just a revenue number they're shooting for. I'm talking about a disciplined financial plan that can be measured and we can hold people to each line from an accountability standpoint. The successes that I've had with my companies that I built myself, as well as the ones that I've coached along the way, have been driven with a financial planning acumen, holding people to the numbers, because that will give us the efficiencies and that will give us the effectiveness and that will improve our margins. And it helps us make better decisions. I took on a coach client in Houston who had been in business for 14 years. And before I start my engagements with my coach clients, I tell them, send me anything that's not bolted down so I can understand your company better. And I give them examples. I want the vision, I want the org chart, I want the financial plan and financial business plan. And this guy sends me a note and he says, hey, you may fire me before we get started. I've got bad news and good news. The bad news is I don't have anything that you're asking me for. The good news is it won't take you long to review it. So he had a sense of humor, and we brought his management team out to my house for a couple of days, and we built this financial plan. Then they went back and started with the company. 14 years in business, and they ran off 6 consecutive record months. And in those 6 months, the revenue and profits exceeded any full year in the history of the company.
Wow.
And the number one thing was running the company with that financial plan. So that to me is item number 1. Item number 2 is that so often, so many companies are offering too many products or too many services. I've got an expression called focus precedes success. I want to look at which of the products are moving, which ones have the margins, which one have the best opportunity for growth, and let's narrow our focus and own more market share of that. You've met my wife, Karen, who recently sold her business, but she had it for over 30 years, and it was a $70 million business that she owned, exotic fruits and vegetables. And at one stage, their claim to fame was, we've got over 200 different fruits and vegetables that are unique to the world that we offer. When we cut that product line down to something closer to 30 or 40, that's when the revenue and the profit growth took place. And if you can think about that, that's perishables. So there's this 80,000 square foot warehouse, and small moving items are going to waste. And how do you protect your inventory and keep everything moving? And the salespeople can't articulate. They can't articulate as well when they've got so many product offerings. So the product offerings is slimming down the line. And then the third thing that I would tell you is too many organizations call them too many customers, and would be better served by having better customers and less. And when I work with my clients and ask them to give me their current list of customers ranked by revenue, there's a significant drop off very quickly. And then I look at the amount of work that the operations and salespeople are putting in on accounts that don't merit it. And if we could take their time and shift it to accounts that are similar to the top, that's where we're really jet propulsion the growth of the company.
Okay, got the three things. I got two quick follow-up questions. One, on the financial plan, I want to just be clear on what exactly are we talking about KPIs? Are we talking about a full budget, not only revenue projections, but also expenses?
Yeah, full budget. Absolutely. And each line has an owner.
As an owner. Yeah, got it. And then when it comes to the products, is it just revenue that you're looking at when you're trying to figure out what are the best products, or are there some other things to look at from time to time?
Yeah, it's not just the revenue side. It's where's the opportunity, the marketplace.
Yeah.
And look, you've heard this expression before. I give Vern Harnish the credit for it, but I think it's probably somebody before him. Revenues are vanity and profits are sanity. And so many small to medium-sized business owners want to talk about their revenue line. It makes no difference to me what your revenue line is if you're not making money at it. So a rigorous discipline about what we're doing from a product standpoint when it comes to profitability.
And I love the whole thing about really focusing on your best customers. I think the term that a lot of people use is ICP, your ideal customer profile. It's so powerful.
Hey, Rob, let me go back to that Houston client that I talked about with 6 consecutive record months, and the 6 months were better than any 1 year full revenue and profit. They had over 1,000 customers. Their top 10 were doing somewhere between $300,000 to $500,000 a year in business revenue wise with them. And then it dropped off substantially to where $1,000 in a year for the whole business for a customer. And I said, how many of those $200,000 to $400,000 accounts are out in your marketplace that you don't have? And he guessed about 100. And I said, well, but your salespeople are spending 90% of their time on $1,000 and $2,000 accounts. You'll get that business even if you don't call on those customers. You're not their main provider. They're doing business with somebody else, and they only use you in an emergency. So you're going to get that business anyway. We don't need to call on them anymore. Call on these giants. You're going to get a lot of rejection. It's going to take you longer to win them over. But when you win them, now you've got $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 accounts. So, all of a sudden, instead of having 10 of those, all of a sudden you've got 30 of those. It's an entirely different company. And by the way, that entirely different company is running way more efficiently. And those larger customers tend to be less problem-oriented customers.
Fun for everybody. Everybody's having more fun.
Absolutely.
Jack, this has been unbelievably awesome. We not only touched on the talent side, which is what the podcast is all about, but you really gave us some real good bonuses on strategy, which I actually have a page full of notes here myself. Jack, thanks so much. Where can people find out more about you?
JackDalySales.com. That's the easiest way. And Daly is Daly, no I, no E. And it's always a pleasure, Rob, to deal with a pro. And I do a lot of podcasts, and you followed a process. You were prepared before the call. We weren't going through and winging things, although this was authentic and real. I just felt I was in the room with a professional. And so I thank you for your preparation.
Oh, my pleasure. And I can assure you, some of that not only came from the same accounting firm that you were at, because I was at that same one when it was Big Six, but also from so many of the little tips that I've picked up from your seminars over the years, the workshops. And then I'm in this fortunate position where we're friends and you're sharing insights with me constantly. And for the audience, first of all, you got a whole bunch of homework to do after listening to what Jack has to say. And I can't recommend his books enough. The Hyper Sales Growth changed the way I thought about sales and sales management, and Life by Design is just so inspirational. So Jack, thanks.
Hey, Rob, before we go, every opportunity that I get to be in front of small to medium-sized business owners, I like sharing this one thought: the difference between an expense and an investment. And so often, particularly where you started with culture, people will say, well, I don't want to put that money out for this because where's my ROI? It's too expensive. When I think about recognition awards for salespeople, and I'm famous for giving away a Mercedes to my top salesperson, and people go, well, he's playing with a bigger purse than me. No, no, no. When you understood what the return on that investment was and how much did it take to really do that, it wasn't a lot of money. I was getting a 60 times return on every car that I gave away at 60x. But on first blush, I hear it so often, too expensive. And so understanding the rigor of saying, what can we measure and can we expect on this investment, and holding your people to getting that return. That's the key.
Very powerful words. And by the way, as Jack mentioned, he used to be an accountant. Okay. And he's saying, go ahead and make those investments. They might show up as expenses on the income statement, but those are investments. Jack, thanks again. I'll see you soon.
You bet. Thanks.
Thanks for listening. The Great Talent, Great Business podcast is brought to you by Work Better Now. Don't forget to review, subscribe, and download the worksheet for this episode at the link below. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on LinkedIn at Great Talent, Great Business, or visit greattalentpodcast.com.